Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Week 14 Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings. We got Week 14 kicking off Thursday night with the Patriots and the Rams. We're going to break down this Showdown slate like we always do. We'll start off at the top of the player pool and work our way down. I'll talk about all the playable options, all the guys that I do have interest in for this slate, and then after we do that, towards the end of the video, we'll take a look at roster construction, talk through how I'm looking to build out my lineups, who I want to play at captain, whether I want to try and pay up at captain, or if there's any guys that I like for cheap that I think are captain worthy. I'll be sure to touch on that towards the end of the video. But before we do get started, guys, as always, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button down below. If you are new to the channel, be sure to click that subscribe button as well. Click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. I do have a lot of content coming out throughout the week. I have NBA videos back on the channel daily. I'll be uploading NBA videos daily once the NBA season gets here in a couple of weeks. So really excited for that. Ton of content coming out. Be sure you are subscribed with notifications on so that way you never miss out on any of my new videos. And if you do really enjoy my videos, and if they do help you out a lot and you want to get more content from me, you want to see more that I have to offer, I do have a Patreon link down below in the description. You can see all that I do have to offer on Patreon if that does interest you. It's obviously optional, but for those of you that are interested, the Patreon is linked down below. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the slate. I thought we did a really good job Tuesday night, hitting on a lot of good plays Tuesday night in that Ravens-Cowboys game. I talked about how I liked Michael Gallup a lot as a cheap play. I talked about, my favorite pay-up options at captain were Lamar, Amari Cooper. I preferred Andy Dalton over Zeke, and that worked out well. I feel like we did a really good job Tuesday night, kind of breaking down the slate, how I'm looking to approach it. Had a really good day Tuesday, so let's look to do that again on this game on Thursday. Got another, big prize pool, or another slate with big prize pools. Millionaire Maker, $2.25 million in total prizes for Thursday night. Just a $10 entry, so a lot of big contests out there. Let's break down this slate. Start off at the top. We'll hit on the two quarterbacks because the two quarterbacks are the most expensive options. We got Jared Goff at $11K, and then we got Cam Newton at $10,600, assuming you are playing them in the flex. So I say this in pretty much every Showdown video, and I'm going to say it once again. The quarterbacks, you normally want to get at least one of the two quarterbacks in. Like if you just look at the winning GPP lineups on these Showdown slates, rarely do you see neither quarterback in the winning lineup. Normally at least one of the two quarterbacks is going to be in the winning lineup, and sometimes you'll even see a scenario where both quarterbacks are in the winning lineup. I rarely make lineups without either one of the two QBs. Normally I prefer quarterbacks with rushing upside, so I think if I can only choose one of Jared Goff or Cam Newton, I do prefer Cam Newton. I know Cam hasn't been great as a passer this year. We haven't really seen him go out there and just chuck the ball 35, 40 times a game. I mean, this is a Patriots team that just wants to run the ball as much as possible, whether that's with their running backs or whether that's with Cam Newton. I mean, you just look at his last 3 games. He has under 20 pass attempts in 3 of his last 4 games. Obviously, last week against the Chargers, they won 45-0. I mean, Cam didn't have to throw the ball barely at all in that game. He only had 69 passing yards. But even in games where they're close, where they're competitive, I mean, Arizona, they won by 3. Baltimore, they won by 6. Cam only threw the ball 17 times, 18 times in those games. That's obviously a huge concern. He's not going to go out there and throw the ball 40, 45 times unless they're just losing big and, they're playing catch up. But this is where you get the upside from Cam. The rushing upside, that's what makes him fantasy viable. I mean, 2 rushing touchdowns last week. We know when they get down to the goal line, they will let Cam just punch it in. They'll run QB sneaks. They'll run QB draws. Cam is so valuable near the goal line. His rushing upside is what makes him fantasy viable, and I do prefer him over Jared Goff. Jared Goff, he's shown somewhat of a ceiling this year. In order for him to hit his ceiling, you're going to have to get over 300 yards and multiple touchdowns. He's going to have to throw for probably 350 yards and 3 touchdowns to get 25, 28 DraftKings points. Whereas Cam, let's say Cam only has 150 yards and a touchdown. Well, he could give you 50 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he has the upside to get multiple rushing touchdowns just with how much they use him near the goal line. I do prefer Cam here. I guess one positive is that the Patriots are dogs in this game. They are 5-point dogs. So game script would maybe favor the passing game here. Maybe we will see the Patriots playing from behind. Maybe we'll see Cam forced to throw a little bit more than he normally would. Obviously Jared Goff, his stacking options are much more appealing. Obviously Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods are much more appealing plays than Jacoby Myers and Damiere Byrd. But I still wouldn't write those guys off, especially Damiere Byrd we're going to talk about. I mean, Damiere Byrd is really, really cheap. He is only $800. even though Woods and Kupp are obviously better plays than, the Patriots receivers, I still prefer to go to Cam Newton over Jared Goff, but I feel like this is probably going to be another slate where I want to try and get both quarterbacks in. I think there is going to be enough value to do so. We do have some really cheap guys that are playable, in my opinion, so that's really my thoughts there. I'm going to want to get one of the two quarterbacks in. If I can only play one, I think I slightly prefer Cam, but I really like both quarterbacks. I think I'll definitely have exposure to both, a good amount of exposure to both. But then you got Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, like our two most expensive options next to the quarterbacks. Obviously, Kupp and Woods are really good plays here. Choosing between these two guys is always so tough. It seems like whenever I play Cooper Kupp, that's when Robert Woods goes off, and whenever I play Robert Woods, that's when Cooper Kupp goes off. Like, I just can't really get these guys right. I think because it's a single-game showdown slate, I'm going to have exposure to both guys. I think if I can only choose one, though, I do give the edge to Cooper Kupp. Like, Cooper Kupp, he'll be playing out of the slot. He should be able to avoid Stephon Gilmore. Like, I know the Patriots have a pretty good defense overall. Gilmore is like their one shutdown corner, and I assume that Gilmore probably is going to shadow Robert Woods. So, Cooper Kupp, he's probably going to get 8 to 10 targets. Robert Woods is probably going to see 8 to 10 targets. I think I prefer, just the individual matchup a little bit better for Cooper Kupp. That's why I slightly prefer him, but you can't go wrong with Robert Woods. He's getting a ton of volume, double-digit targets in 3 straight games. We know when Jared Goff drops back to throw, he's looking for Robert Woods. He's looking for Cooper Kupp. Like, those are the two guys that are going to get the most volume on this team. It's always tough picking between the two. Like, it feels like whenever you pick one of them, the other one goes off, and whenever you pick the other one, the one you don't pick goes off. So I'm going to have exposure to both. I guess if I can only play one, though, I do prefer Cooper Kupp over Robert Woods. I think both these guys are captain worthy for sure. Normally, I want to play running backs and receivers at captain. I probably won't be playing Jared Goff at captain. I think Cam is captain worthy just because of the rushing upside he has. Like, Cam doesn't have to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns to really hit his ceiling. He can get there on 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he can add, 2 rushing touchdowns. I'm fine playing Cam at captain, but I think my favorite pay-up captains are probably going to be these 2 Rams receivers. And, like I said, I do give the slight edge to Cooper Kupp. I do really like Cooper Kupp here at 9,600. And then you have the running backs from both teams. You got Damian Harris at 8,800. You got Cam Akers at 8K. We could talk about Darrell Henderson as well for 7,400. So these are 2 backfields that I've kind of been avoiding all season. Like, I haven't really been playing any Patriots running backs. Like, when they're on the main slate, I just don't really play Harris or White or Burkhead or any of those guys. And even the Rams side, I haven't really been playing any Rams running backs this year. Obviously, on a single game showdown slate, these are going to be guys that we have to consider just because the player pool is so thin. Harris, I'm not the biggest fan of here. It's not the best matchup overall. The Rams have a solid run defense. Game script also probably going to favor more of a guy like James White. With the Patriots being dogs in this game, underdogs, 5-point underdogs, like maybe we see them have to throw a little bit more. Damian Harris is going to get his touches. He's probably going to get 13 to 15 carries, but he doesn't really get much work in the passing game. He's going to have to score a touchdown for him to really hit his ceiling. And at 8,800, you're going to need 15 to 20 points at least from Harris for him to be like a guy you have to have. In order for him to do that, he's going to have a really efficient game. He's going to have to rush for over 100 yards, or he's going to have to get multiple touchdowns, and I just don't know if he's going to do that against this good Rams defense. So I probably won't be looking at Damian Harris. I don't really like him at 8,800. If I was going to play a running back in this game, I think it would definitely be Cam Akers. Akers is questionable. I'm recording this video on Wednesday afternoon. All signs are pointing to him playing, so I'm not really too worried about that, but I guess that is something we'll need to monitor heading up to Thursday night. But Akers, I do have interest in. I'm a big Florida State fan, so Cam Akers was a guy that I loved watching when he played at FSU. The dude was so good, so explosive. We had such a bad offensive line, and this dude would just go out there and just run for 150 yards, 3 touchdowns every week with, a terrible offensive line behind him at Florida State. He hasn't really been as good as I thought, or I wouldn't say as good, but he just hasn't gotten the work that I would have thought they would give him. They took a 2nd-round pick on him. I thought going into the season that Akers could get like a workhorse-type role, that he was going to be their clear number 1 back, and that really hasn't been the case this year. But just as of late, especially last week, we saw Cam Akers really, kind of take control of this backfield. I believe he played on over 70% of the snaps or close to it. He got 21 touches. 22 touches, actually. He got 21 carries. I know he got stuffed at the goal line multiple times. Like, he could have had a way better game than he did last week against Arizona. It was great to see him get 22 touches. We know the Rams are another team that wants to run the ball a ton. If they have a lead, they're just going to be pounding the rock. I do like Cam Akers here. I think he is I think moving forward, he is going to be the number one running back for the Rams. They'll still involve Darrell Henderson. They'll still involve Malcolm Brown. But if there's ever a guy that's, if out of all the Rams running backs, if I have to pick one to just lead the backfield in touches, to have the best game out of all three of them, it's definitely going to be Cam Akers. I know they've priced him up. I mean, he's $8K. It's not like he's cheap by any means, but it was great to see him get 22 touches last week. Henderson, I believe, he didn't get involved much at all. He got 5 touches. He did have a long touchdown run, but besides that, I mean, Darrell Henderson really wasn't involved much at all last week. And then if we look at Malcolm Brown, I don't think Malcolm Brown really saw much volume either. Yeah, he only saw 4 touches. So you had 5 touches for Henderson, 4 for Malcolm Brown, and then 22 for Cam Akers. I think Cam Akers, beat writers have been saying it all year that, as the season progresses, Cam Akers is going to take control of this backfield, and we kind of saw that be the case last week. I wouldn't expect much to change. You never know with Sean McVay, but, Cam Akers is your young draft pick that you drafted for a reason. Give this guy the work, make him the number one back, and I'm hoping the Rams do that. Rest of the season, I would expect them to do that for this game. So out of Akers, Henderson, Malcolm Brown, if I have to pick a Rams running back, really, if I just have to pick a running back in this game, it's for sure going to be Cam Akers for me at 8K. But then you got Jacoby Myers at 6,800. So Jacoby Myers had that stretch of a couple weeks where he was just getting massive volume. 10 targets against Buffalo, 14 against the Jets, 7 against Baltimore. He had 6 the week before that against San Fran. The last few games, things have started to trend down, but part of that has been due to game script. I mean, the Patriots really haven't had to throw in some of these games. We saw in the Chargers game, I think Cam only threw the ball, he threw the ball under 20 times. I think it was the Arizona game as well. He threw the ball under 20 times. It was either the Arizona or Houston game, I can't remember, but Cam has only thrown the ball, more than 20 times once in his last 4 games, which hasn't really resulted to many targets for Jacoby Myers, but, his target share, his percentage of Cam's dropbacks, I mean, Cam only threw the ball 18 times or 19 times against the Chargers, and, out of his 19 throws, Myers did get 6 of those 19 pass attempts gone his way. So the target share is still there for Jacoby Myers. It's just that this Patriots team does not throw the ball much. But like I said earlier, they're 5-point dogs. This is a game where you would expect the Patriots to most likely be playing from behind. Maybe they have to lean on the passing game a little bit more, especially against this good Rams front 7. I do like Jacoby Myers here. I think out of all the Patriots receivers, he's the guy you would expect to lead the receiving corps in targets most weeks. I mean, he is their number 1 receiver at this point with Julian Edelman, still out. I do like Jacoby Myers at 6,800. We'll talk about some of the guys that are cheaper, like Damiere Byrd. I mean, Damiere Byrd's $800. He's my favorite value play on the slate. I think he's going to be pretty popular, but it's really hard to get away from him at that salary. If you're not factoring in salary, Jacoby Myers is my favorite Patriots receiver to target, but when you do factor in salary, when you factor in how cheap Byrd is, even N'Keal Harry is really cheap. Those guys I do have interest in as potential value plays, but I do like Myers in the mid-range. I don't know if I'd use him at captain. Probably not going to be a captain play for me, but I think as a flex option, I don't think he's going to be too popular here. Definitely a guy I would consider just as a flex play in the mid-range. But then James White, you got at 6,400. I mean, this is a game script where you would expect James White to be involved. They're dogs. You would expect them to be playing from behind, forced to throw. I mean, James White was barely involved last week, mainly due to the fact that they won 45-0. In a game like this where they're on the road, they're 5-point dogs, if I have to pick a Patriots running back to play, it's probably going to be James White, but I really think I'm just going to be avoiding this backfield as a whole. With their prices, I don't really love any of the Patriots running backs. They're probably just going to be guys that I'm underweight on as a whole. So let's go ahead and move down below 6K, start talking about some cheaper options. You got Josh Reynolds at 5,600. This is a guy that it's really hard to predict what Josh Reynolds is going to do on a weekly basis. Last week, he got 1 target. The 2 weeks before that, he got 6 targets against San Fran and 6 against Tampa Bay. Then he got 10 against Seattle. His targets have kind of been up in the air this year. He had a stretch where he was getting good volume, and then last week he only got 1 target. I don't think he saw an injury or got an injury or anything. I think it was just that, he was barely involved last week. Right here it says that he saw his playing time decrease with Van Jefferson playing 2 more offensive snaps and receiving 4 more targets. So maybe that's a concern with Van Jefferson playing a little bit more than Josh Reynolds. Reynolds is 5,600. It's not like he's dirt cheap. I don't think he's going to be a guy that I really look to. I think he's just kind of too expensive for me. I'd rather just play some of these cheaper receivers that kind of project similarly to Reynolds, and you're saving a lot of salary. I mean, Van Jefferson is 2,600. We talked about the Patriots receivers. You got N'Keal Harry at 1,800. You got Damiere Byrd at 800. I'm just going to play those guys if I need cheap options. So probably won't really be looking at Josh Reynolds. Tyler Higbee is another guy that's just, he's been really hard to predict this year. He really hasn't done anything since week 2 against Philly when he had 3 touchdowns. He did find the end zone last week. He finally scored a touchdown since week 2. I mean, he had 3 touchdowns in week 2, and he hasn't scored at all since then until last week against Arizona when he did find the end zone. I mean, at this point, Tyler Higbee is touchdown dependent. Like, if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's probably scoring less than 10 DraftKings points. He's kind of similar to Josh Reynolds. It's too hard to predict what you're going to get from Higbee on a weekly basis. He's going to be really low owned, so I assume, if you're someone that likes to play the ownership game, if you want to get a guy that's low owned, that has some upside, I guess, then Higbee could be your guy, but I probably won't be looking to Higbee at 5K. I just don't think I want to pay that price for him when we have guys that are so much cheaper that are going to see just as many targets. So probably not on Higbee. Sony Michel, I'm not the biggest fan of either. We talked about it earlier. This Patriots backfield is one I'm probably just going to be avoiding as a whole. I mean, in his first game back last week, Michel did get 11 touches. He was pretty involved. At 4,800, I mean, he's not that expensive, but again, I just hate playing these Patriots running backs. It seems like whichever one I play, like if I play Damian Harris, then James White will have a big game. If I play James White, Harris or Michel will have a big game. Like, it's just so hard to predict what you're going to get from the Patriots running backs with how they split the touches. Game script, in my opinion, is going to favor a guy like James White here, but really I just don't have any interest in like any of the Patriots running backs. The defenses, you guys know me. I don't really like playing the defenses. Defenses just have such low floors. The upside's not there either. I mean, you're going to need a defensive touchdown or just a ton of turnovers, a ton of sacks for a defense to really pay off their salary to be like in the winning lineup. Obviously, if the Rams defense gets a pick six, there's a good chance they'll make it into the winning lineup. But, even if they do get a pick six, let's say they give up 14 points. I mean, they're still only going to finish with, 8 DraftKings points or 9 DraftKings points. And even then, they still might not make the winning lineup. Like, I just don't play defenses. I guess if I had to play one, I'd prefer the Rams at home against a turnover-prone quarterback like Cam Newton. But really, I just don't have any interest in either defenses. The kickers, fine to go to. You can play one of the 2 kickers for value. But I think there's better value. Like, I'm not really interested in Gerald Everett, but Van Jefferson, 2,600, did see 5 targets last week, played a little bit more than Josh Reynolds did. I don't know if this is going to be something that we see continue, but if we're going to get 5-6 targets for Van Jefferson at 2,600, I don't mind going to him as just a cheap, kind of punt play to save some salary so you can pay up for all the other options that we have at the top. I talked about it earlier. I don't really like Malcolm Brown, but N'Keal Harry, Damiere Byrd, these are 2 guys that I do have a lot of interest in. These are 2 of the better value plays, just in my opinion. So N'Keal Harry, he's returned. He returned on week 11 against Houston. In the 3 games that he's played since his return from, I believe, the concussion protocol or COVID, I can't remember what he was dealing with, but the last 3 games that he's played, he's seen 8, 2, and 3 targets. Obviously, 2 and 3 targets over his last 2 games is not a ton of volume, but a lot of that has been due to the fact that the Patriots just haven't had to throw. They've just been able to run the ball to kill the clock. I don't know if this is going to be a game where they're going to be able to do that. If we see Cam throw the ball 30, 35 times, I mean, N'Keal Harry is probably going to see at least 5 to 6 targets for only 1,800. If Jalen Ramsey is going to be like shadowing Jacoby Myers, then that could open up some more targets for a guy like N'Keal Harry. I like him a lot at 1,800. I think there's plenty of upside for him at this salary. I do like Damiere Byrd as well for only $800. I mean, Damiere Byrd, even with N'Keal Harry back, has still been like an every down receiver. I'm pretty sure he's still playing like over 70 or 80% of the snaps. I can't remember exactly how many he played last week, but he's pretty much been like their every down receiver, him and Jacoby Myers, and then you have N'Keal Harry playing out of the slot. But like even with N'Keal Harry back, I mean, Damiere Byrd saw 7 targets week 11. He saw 8 targets week 12, only 3 last week, but he's $800. I mean, my God, if we're getting a guy for $800 that's going to see 6 to 8 targets, I mean, sign me up all day for Damiere Byrd. I know he's probably going to be popular. Like, I haven't really looked at ownership yet. I assume Damiere Byrd is probably going to be one of the more popular value plays, but how can you not go to him at this price? I mean, he should be like 5K, 6K with how much volume he's getting. I know he's not a guy that you would consider like on a main slate. Like, you're not playing Damiere Byrd on a full main slate. You're really probably not going to play any of these Patriots pass catchers on a full main slate just because this team doesn't pass the ball much. But on a single game showdown slate, I mean, if Damiere Byrd only gets 8 points, like if he gets 4 catches for 40 yards, he could still be a guy that makes the winning lineup because he's so cheap and he's going to allow you to pay up for really, all those top tier options. He'll allow you to get in the Rams receivers. He'll probably allow you to get in both quarterbacks as well. Even though he's most likely going to be popular, I think Damiere Byrd is a great value play at $800. I think N'Keal Harry is a great value play as well. I just think both these two guys are too cheap for a game where the Patriots are probably going to be forced to throw a little bit more than they normally would. Those are two value plays I do like a lot here, but I don't think there's really anyone else I'm going to be looking to target once you get past Damiere Byrd. Like Gunner, he had a punt return for a touchdown last week, and he had a 38-yard touchdown catch. That's obviously not going to happen, and most likely probably rest of the season. So, yeah, I probably won't be going to him. I would much rather play Harry or Byrd over him. Really don't want to play like Ryan Izzo. The Patriots just don't involve their tight ends enough to where I want to consider a guy like Izzo. So, yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at roster construction just real quick before we do end the video. Kind of talk about how I'm looking to build out my lineups. I said it earlier. I think if I'm paying up at captain, Cooper Kupp is probably my favorite pay-up option at captain. You can't go wrong with Robert Woods either, but I think I do give the slight edge to Cooper Kupp. If I'm playing Cooper Kupp at captain and I'm assuming that he has a big game, I want to correlate my lineups correctly, pair Jared Goff with Cooper Kupp so that way, I'm just correlating my lineups to where, let's say Kupp has 100 yards and a touchdown. That means Jared Goff's going to have at least 100 yards and a touchdown and probably way more than that. So I want to correlate my lineups the right way, get the most upside. So I do like Kupp at captain, pair him with Jared Goff. Let's plug in Damiere Byrd as our cheap value just to see what that allows us to do. We talked about it earlier. I think Damiere Byrd is clearly one of the better value plays on the slate. You plug Damiere Byrd in, that gives you up to almost 8K remaining per player for your last 3 spots. So we could probably fit in Cam as well into this build. We could probably fit in Robert Woods as well, and I think that would still leave us enough to play like one of these cheap, like let's say we plug in N'Keal Harry. Yeah, that still leaves us enough to play Robert Woods, and then we'd have $2,000 in salary left over. I don't know if there's anybody I'd get. Well, yeah, I guess you could. You could play N'Keal Harry there and just leave salary on the table, or you could use the salary and play one of the 2 kickers. You could play. I don't know if Nick Folk's going to play here. He's listed as a limited participant in Tuesday's practice, so I guess that is something worth monitoring. I don't really pay attention to kicker injuries throughout the week, but kicker injuries are important on a single game showdown slate, so keep a lookout for that. Into this build, I don't mind playing one of the 2 kickers if it makes your build work. So you could definitely plug in Folk there, and that's a pretty good lineup. You got Cooper Kupp at captain with Jared Goff. You got Cam Newton, Robert Woods, Damiere Byrd is a cheap value play with one of the kickers. So that's a build that I do like. We could make some changes here. We could maybe play a different guy at captain. We talked about it earlier. I don't mind Robert Woods either at captain. You could play him there. I don't know if that would really change much. Let's do the same build just with Robert Woods at captain and see if that allows us to play anything different. Yeah, it only frees up $200, gets us to play the Patriots defense, but, like I said earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of the Patriots defense here. I don't know if there's really, any mid-range options, though, that I love at captain. Like Cam Akers, I guess he's probably my favorite play in the mid-range, him or Jacoby Myers, but I don't know if those are going to be guys that I have a lot of at captain. In terms of value plays, there's really, I love Harry as a value. I love Byrd as a value, but I don't know if I'm going to use those guys at captain. Even if you do play Damiere Byrd at captain, I guess you could do that. That's just going to let you play everyone at the top. You literally have enough salary to play literally everyone. So, we've seen Byrd has big play upside. He has the potential to get a 50-60-yard touchdown like he did week 11 against Houston. I guess he's not the worst captain play because he's so cheap. You're still going to need him to put up a big game. If he only puts up 8 points, you're not going to be happy with that. But if you get, a long touchdown catch or let's say he has 6 catches, 70 yards and a touchdown, Damiere Byrd could definitely be the winning captain. Normally I don't go that cheap at captain, but because, Byrd is so cheap, man, I'd be fine playing him at captain in at least some of my builds. If you're playing a lot of lineups, if you're MMing or something, I would have exposure to Byrd at captain. I assume he's probably going to be my highest owned value play overall, though, whether I have him at captain or just in the flex play. Byrd's just too cheap in my opinion, so that's just kind of how I'm looking to approach this slate, guys. We have some good value here with Byrd, so cheap at $800. You got N'Keal Harry, who should see it 5, 6, 7 targets, and he's also $1,800. You just play those 2 guys, and you can literally just play whoever you want once you do that. You can play whoever you want at captain. You can fit in all the top tier options, so that's kind of how I'm looking to approach this slate. I think both Harry and Byrd are probably going to see at least 5, 6 targets one of them probably could pop off and maybe score a touchdown. I'd be very surprised if you don't see either one of those two guys in the winning lineup come Thursday night. I think there's a possibility maybe both of them make the winning lineup. So I'll have a lot of exposure to both those guys. That's kind of where I'm looking to start off, and then really just pay up for everyone at the top, because that's kind of how I look to go with these showdown slates. I don't think the mid-range is going to be where I live here. I think I'm definitely going to be going stars and scrubs with the top quarterbacks, both of the Rams receivers, and then punting with Bird, punting with N'Keal Harry as cheap options. But yeah, guys, I think we broke everything down. We talked about the player pool from top to bottom. We hit on roster construction as well, how I'm looking to build out my lineups. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I do appreciate you watching the video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button before you do get out of here. Hit the subscribe button as well. Click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. And if you want to get more content from me, if you do enjoy the videos that I offer on YouTube, obviously these are free to watch. If you want to get more content from me, I have stuff available on Patreon. You can check that out. Link down below in the description. If that does interest you. It is obviously optional, but for those of you that are interested, the Patreon's linked down below. But best of luck on this slate, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you did enjoy. I hope it helped, and we'll see you on Friday. Yeah, I'll have my main slate video out on Friday. Full main slate breakdown. That'll be up Friday morning, so be sure to check that out. Good luck on the slate, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.